All of these affordances, more than anything, come from building on top of Holochain, which I will not go super deep into because we have people who are possibly better than me at doing that. But what I want to say is that building on Holochain allows us to have cryptographically secured on-chain social data, not on a global blockchain, but on a local source chain for each community. What does this mean, or what we find really important about this in neighborhoods is that we are building the social computational fabric that we are operating on, right? These are distributed apps. We are running our community. Our devices are holding our data. Our devices are performing the computation on our assessments and our community interactions. We find this super important, super necessary, that you as a community are in control of your own social data. This also means, because we're building on Holochain, that there's no global consensus. So there's no single monolithic vision of what is the truth. That means it is a contingent reality, socially produced in a local context. It allows it to be scalable much more easily than on blockchains, but it also brings it challenges, right? One of the main challenges is, if you have no global consensus, then how do you do sense making across communities? Until now, we've only seen operations of how to do sense making internally, like within a single community. But how would we do this across communities? So for that, we are proposing the Sensemaker. The Sensemaker is a shared data schema for social metadata. So what does that mean? It means that each group, each neighborhoods, has a Sensemaker inside of their group. It's a Holochain DNA with a specific pattern of how to record the social data. So the data that comes from assessments in this case, right? You put this in a specific place in your code, and then because each neighborhood has the same structure for their social data, you can start to do operations between them. Next slide. Yeah, so you don't have to do like analyze the data of all the activity in the group. You only need to analyze the data within the Sensemaker, and we are also gonna provide like specific operations that you can do on this data. So there will be like a API that groups can, or coders can implement for specific sense-making operations. What does this mean? Yeah, good question. We're trying to figure it out, but we have a few ideas. Yeah, please continue. Like a what? Yeah. Yeah. It's prime time for those kinds of operations, yeah. Yeah. So, for example, one very specific thing that you can do with the Sensemaker is to reinterpret the assessment that a community is using. So, for example, let's say we have an urban farming community that is using a range to assess the posts, and we want to bring that to a local coast agricultural group that uses a 3 emoji reaction system. The local coast agriculture can import the resources from another community into their posts because they find them relevant. They want to also see what these people are talking about. They've agreed that they want to share this data, and they want to translate the way in which the culture from one group translates to the other. So they define a threshold, right? Like, okay, if your posts are from 0 to 0.33, it's one emoji. In the middle, it's another emoji. If it's high up, it's another emoji. It's a very, very simple example. But what I want you to get from this is that communities can choose how to interpret the social data of other communities. It is up to each community to recontextualize what the other community is bringing in. Next slide, please. And you can do this across communities, right? You can bring data from other communities. Communities decide what they want to expose, what they want to make available for communities to be able to import, and you can decide to bridge across communities. You build this bridge. We're thinking of having some standards for assessments, so it would be easier if we are using the same algorithm for likes for a feed, then it's super straightforward to import those. But if not, that's totally fine. We can create a custom bridge between communities so that they decide how to interpret other communities' data. Next, please. Yeah, and we can of course do this with badges as well, right? Like this is a super straightforward example. So if you have a surf community and someone has a surfer instructor badge there, you can assume that person is maybe a local in the area, so you can give them a local badge in your community. If you have an expert in urban farming, maybe in the agriculture group, that's just a home grower badge. And maybe that badge only allows you access to certain places in that community, or gives you a modifier on certain posts, or whatever you can think about. But this is how we're thinking of doing sense making in a context of no global consensus, right? How do we bridge social data in a way that's contingent to the reality of each group?